Okay, joining me here at the table is Senator Elizabeth Warren. As always, there's about 1 million things to speak with you about. There was a hearing today for Trump's nominee for the Federal Reserve Chair, Kevin Warsh. You questioned him about a lot of things. We're going to play a bunch of it. I wanted to play one part here because it just, I think it's a reminder of all of the tactics and levers Trump may use. So let's play that. We'll talk about it.
Okay. Name one aspect of President Trump's economic agenda with which you disagree.
Well, Senator, the Federal Reserve in recent years has wandered outside of its remit, wandered into other areas.
I'm asking for something
That's
you
not something
disagree
I'm
with
prepared to do.
Donald Trump on.
If I'm confirmed, the Federal Reserve should stay in its lane.
Just one little place where you disagree with Donald Trump.
Well, I do have a disagreement, actually, Senator, with the president. I think even this morning he said that he thought I was out of central casting. I think central casting, I'd look older, grayer, and maybe show up here with a cigar of sorts.
Quite adorable.
I mean, I think what it's a reminder of is the reason Trump hates Jerome Powell, one of the reasons, is because he won't manipulate data as an independent head of the Federal Reserve is not supposed to do. Right. And you're basically asking him, what are you going to do?
Well, let me just set the context for what that question was all about. The whole thing that Kevin Warsh had to show up today and show to the members of the committee is that he would be independent. Now, he's the first Fed chair to have to come in and do that because nobody ever thought that was a question, right? For a long, long time. We've had an independent Fed. And the reason we have an independent Fed is we want to believe that these are a group of people who get together and they look at the numbers on employment and they look at the numbers on where inflation is headed and they look at what tariffs are doing around the world. And then they make their best decisions on monetary policy. You may disagree with them. I often disagree with them. But it's on the numbers. That's not what Donald Trump wants. He wants a political Fed. In fact, he wants a Fed that he controls. And here's the reason why. Donald Trump made that big promise when he was running for president that on day one, he would lower costs. Remember how many times he said that? Said that was the reason he won. Well, where are we on cost? Cost of groceries is up. Cost of health care is up. Cost of gasoline is up. Cost of utilities is up on costs. He is in terrible trouble on the economy. So here's his last hope is that he can get the Fed to come in and juice the economy, blow things up, and he'll be able to make it past Election Day. It's just another election device. He's 6 months out. He's got no other cards to play. So he wants a Fed under his control. Now, he hasn't just been out there talking about it, jawboning about it. No. He's tried to fire Jerome Powell. He's brought criminal charges against him. He's tried to fire another Federal Reserve governor, Lisa Cook. He is doing two things when he does that. He's trying to push them out so he gets more opportunities to nominate, but he's also trying to just scare the tar out of every one of those Fed governors and say, you want to end up in court? You want to end up having to hire a bunch of lawyers? You want to end up, instead of reading numbers, to have to spend your time trying to defend yourself? He is trying to frighten the Fed into submission. So the job today of Kevin Warsh was to prove that, no, he was going to be independent. You know what he told me last week when I met with him? He said, I didn't have to worry about his independence because he was a tough guy. Those were exactly his words, tough guy. He could stand up to Donald Trump. So I asked him, fine, you're right here. Stand up to Donald Trump. Just tell me one little thing that you disagree with Donald Trump on economic policy. Stand up and tell me that. And the answer, as you saw, is trying to make a joke out of it that he's from central casting because he's not crossing the boss. That's what we
Certainly not. And we don't care what your suit or hair looks like.
That's
we
right.
care if you're willing to be independent.
That's
okay,
right.
We have to take a quick break. You've been so generous. You're staying with us for another block. Before we go, I wanted to hear more from you about one of your questions from to Kevin Warsh. I'm going to play a clip, and we'll talk about it after the break.
Okay. Independence takes courage. Let's check out your independence and your courage. We'll start easy. Mr. Warsh, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
we try to keep politics, if I'm confirmed, out of the Federal
I'm just
Reserve.
asking you a factual question. I need to know, I need to measure your independence and your courage.
Senator, I believe that this body certified that election many years ago.
That's not the question I'm asking. I'm asking, did Donald Trump lose in 2020?
And I'm suggesting you in 2020, the Fed
can't
made
answer that.
It's so awkward to watch that when someone like that refuses to say that Donald Trump did not win the 2020 election. In the scope of, and we talk about corruption a lot here, you talk about corruption a lot. What did you make of his answer?
Boy, that guy is really afraid of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Donald Trump's already supposedly committed to this guy. He's put him out there. He said he's the guy. And yet, even this morning, when Fed independence is in the air and people are worried about it, Republicans and Democrats on the record saying Fed independence matters. Donald Trump's out there saying he's going to be very disappointed if Kevin Warsh doesn't do what he wants. And here's Kevin Warsh afraid to say Donald Trump lost the election in 2020. Just can't bring himself to those words. He'll find 28 other ways to dance. Man, that was some fancy soft shoe there. But he cannot say the words. And that tells you about the relationship. You know, I said the guy is going to be a sock puppet. And boy, he just showed it in that hearing.
In that moment. I have to ask you about another story for people who haven't seen it. There was a story in the Wall Street Journal today about a potential U.S. bailout of the UAE during this war, which is such a crazy thing to say out loud. I just wonder, you have been calling out corruption and conflicts of interest. Steve Witkoff has serious conflicts of interest. Jared Kushner does as well in the Middle East. They are currently the negotiators. What went through your head when you saw that story? What should people understand about that?
Corruption possibilities on this one. So here we've got Jared Kushner, son-in-law to the president, out there with a sovereign wealth fund with Witkoff, right? He hits up the UAE for, I don't know, what's he asking him for? Another $1 billion, another couple of $1 billion, so Jared can make big money. And what's the promise on the other side? That Jared's father-in-law will bail out the UAE with U.S. taxpayer dollars. You know, for every one of these, what makes it so stunning is they're not even trying to hide it.
Yes, it's in your face.
Exactly. It's just right out there in plain view that you say, wait a minute, you just paid how much for the rights to do the Melania movie while you've got business pending in front of the White House? It's just everywhere you look, it's Donald Trump or somebody close in his orbit has money to make based on using the assets of United States taxpayers. That's corruption.
It certainly is. And you have been tireless in raising questions and asking questions. We're trying to ask questions, too. The other thing that you've raised recently, this weekend you sent a letter to President Trump demanding answers to, I guess it's kind of a financial mystery of sorts, which is a bunch of companies basically settled lawsuits with Trump by donating millions of dollars to the Trump Library Fund. We don't know who's donated what. Tell us more about this. Okay. It's a crazy story.
So these 4 companies, you may remember, get sued by Donald Trump. Amazon gets sued on something, right? So they get sued. And collectively, they agree to pay about $67 million, you know, some sizable change. But where they agree to pay it is to the Trump Library. Okay, that supposedly makes the medicine go down a little smoother with the American people. It doesn't just look like it was a total
as if they're giving to food banks
right,
or something.
Exactly. And so it doesn't look like Donald Trump just shook them down for the money. So that goes on through. And a few weeks ago, we just happened to notice just this like little tiny thing that said that the Trump Library Fund had been dissolved. So the folks on my team and I said, dissolved? Like, okay, so where did that $67 million go? So we did what I think is the responsible thing. We sent letters to the 4 companies and said, where exactly did you send that money and where is it now since the fund is dissolved? And the answer was, nobody can give an answer.